most of us Americans have schedules, and we book ourselves full up all the time, which means that if the service runs over, some people may not get to their 12 o'clock or their 1 o'clock lunch dates or to see other people. It's not recognizing that all of us are on a schedule. But I will tell you, last week, when I started looking at 36 verses, that I was not going to cover all the verses. So we were here a little bit longer than normal. And yet, those that had to get out of here, when we were at the line at the end, they just zoomed past us, knowing that they had places to go. And they stayed for the whole service. I want to thank every single person here today for your obedience, for you being here, because it is an encouragement to me, and it is also an encouragement to each other. So I just want to thank all of you for being here today. Also, knowing how last week went, I'm more prepared to get through all this stuff today than I maybe was last week. I had 2 funerals in the last 10 days. Neither one of them were expected. In fact, Pete Rosenberger's funeral was not expected, and I don't know if any of you remember Pete, but Pete was in here in the last 4 to 5 years. He probably was in here a dozen times. His brother Scott Rosenberger was probably here about 40 times. I don't know if you remember Scott Rosenberger, or his at the time his significant other was Marty Williams, who for a while she answered the phones and did some clerical things. They were here. That was 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Well, the youngest of 4 brothers, Pete, his son came home about a month ago, and he was passed out unconscious, and he had kidney and liver failure. They took him to the ER. They put him in the hospital. Within about 2 weeks, they stabilized him, and they put him in kindred care where he was receiving transfusions, but they thought he was going to get better. And he was getting transfusions, and he was at the hospital, and then he was at this rehab place, and they were hoping to get it to where he'd go back home. And then about a week ago, he went to bed that night, and the next day he didn't wake up. And all of us were in shock. All of us were in shock because nobody saw that coming. And yet, a friend by the name of Mark Apple, who has been here, I think, once, he called me. Had he not called me, I would not even have known that Pete was sick. Pete would never make himself a burden upon anybody else. He'd be the first person to show up to help people. He would be the last person to say he ever needed anything. He just wouldn't tell you. And Mark told me, and I went and saw him, and I'm glad I did because we had the conversation, and he asked me if I would do his funeral. Well, at the time, it didn't look like he was going to pass in 2 weeks. And I said I would do it if he promised me he wouldn't be in a hurry. And he said he wasn't going to rush anything. Little did I know, within 2 weeks, I'd be doing his funeral. And thank God we had the conversation that we did have, because I could tell his family that he believed in God. I could tell his family that he was ready to pass, but he wasn't, because he has 2 sons, and he had a stepdaughter, and he was hanging on for them. But as far as being here, he was tired. He was tired, and he was ready. And little did I know that I would be able to pass that information on to the rest of his family. A few days ago, that day that it was raining, the whole day, it was surreal. I bring that up because this scripture, I believe we're all born blind, all of us. And what I mean by that is maybe that blindness is ignorance. Ignorance in the way that we have no knowledge. We're just like a clean slate. We're I think we're born innocent, but we don't know right from wrong, night from day. We don't know anything. And that's the blindness I think I'm talking about. And I think this passage, and I think as human beings, is what happens to us, because then we become programmed, and we're programmed by hopefully by our families first, by our parents, our grandparents, our siblings, our aunts and uncles, our close friends. Not every, there's many kids, they don't have that. They don't even get programmed by that. But we're taught things. We're taught things. And then the ones that I was shielded from a lot of things, word I think is naivete. I just thought everybody loved each other, and everybody had a grandma and grandpa, and everybody went to Anderson, Indiana for Christmas, to be go to Frankton to be on the farm, and everybody gave each other Christmas presents. The naivete of a young one taking one's own experience and not understanding that everybody else has their own experiences, and although many of our experiences can be similar, they're so unique. And now, as I've gotten older, and especially being in ministry, seeing how diverse our experiences could be. For some that had peace all their childhood, other people, all they've known is war. For some that have had security and loved ones, others have been on their own, just scrambling to get what they have and just to survive. And then you start looking at those extremes, and it's like, okay, where I'm at in my life right now is, through it all, God saw me through all of it. And through it all, I've had good times and I've had bad times. But when it comes right down to it, I've been covered. I've been taken care of. I'm in a good place. And because of that, it's like, well, how do I feel about that? Not everybody's there. What about these people that aren't? All these questions come up. And then I look at that and it's like, well, for me, I'm grateful. And not only am I grateful, I had a grandmother. I was talking about being programmed early. I had a grandmother that made sure that I understood that everything I had, everything I was getting, everything I was going to get was from God. And it was good. And it was good. And since then, I've turned into my grandparents. Debbie, again with Palms, I can remember my grandma always preaching to me, and I can remember going up there, and I can remember it's like, oh my God. I love my grandmother, don't get me wrong, but it was 24/7, all God, all the time. Can we talk about something else? And now when I say that, what a hypocrite I've become, because that's where I'm at as far as everything to me is about God, and I just want to share that so much. But it's to the point where my poor kids, they've heard it. They've heard it all the way up to that. So where are they at? Well, they've had enough God from me that if I never see them in church again, I think I will. But believe me, they've had 10 lifetimes of it. And then to see it being demonstrated, though, by our church family. Debbie is an excellent choir director, and she's also she teacher and all that. And and this was the other thing. Laura, I think, did Laura initiate this? How did that even get initiated? Because I'd love to say, God, I thought of all this, but Laura wanted help in singing and performing all this.